Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there, even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Emily Lawler, who is the founder of Mama Needs a Mimosa, the restaurant review site for parents. I love what she's tapped into here. I love that she's recognised that even though parents are with their children and love their children and all that good stuff, sometimes we all just need to get out the house, chat with other people and be part of maybe our old lives and really enjoying what our cities and our towns have to offer as well. It's a really interesting chat about transferable skills and reinvention and making moves so you keep moving forward, even though they may feel a bit scary. So if you want to come and join in the chat or tag me where you're listening, please do so. Come to Instagram, Nicky Raby, or you can find all the show notes as well, which are on my podcast page, nickyraby.com. If you're enjoying the episodes, please share with a friend or rate or review and subscribe, all that good stuff. I am excited about where this podcast is going to go this year, and I love that it's reaching new people all around the world every single day. Very exciting. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get on with the episode. Here it is. Emily, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So tell me about you, what you do, and kind of, where you're up to at the moment. We're recording this in early January, so by no means do you feel like you have to have the whole life plan figured out. But just tell me where you're up to today. That would be great.
I definitely do not have the whole life plan figured out.
What? You're joking. I thought you would have done.
So I write a blog called Mama Needs a Mimosa. And I started that whilst I was on maternity leave when my son was about 10 weeks old. For a number of reasons. So the blog is specifically a restaurant review site for parents. And then I have an Instagram feed that is linked to the blog, which is generally more popular than the blog, to be perfectly honest. And I started that because I suddenly began to panic about returning to work and leaving my child, and I wasn't ready, and I knew that I was going to run out of money by the time he was about 9 months old, and I was going to have to go back to nursing shifts, which is my day job. And also, I started it because I had a look online, and I saw that there was no centralized information about where you could take your kids to eat. So there was nowhere that said where had high chairs or where had baby change. And when we first started going out, we were at that stage where you would have those explosive nappies, and it was essential to know where you could change your baby. So there were the two main motivations around it, and I just saw there was a gap in the market, and I thought, let's go for it. And then I got my husband to design the website, and now we've been doing this for nearly 2 years. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I run events as well, so I run dining events for families. that kind of came off the back of the blog. So I started running sort of free meetups in street food venues for people with small children who were on maternity leave, because I wanted to go out and have something nice to eat and maybe a glass of wine. And I found that there were a lot of other women who felt exactly the same way. So,
and it's so funny, like before you have a kid or a family, going out or just like picking up some food is the most simplest thing in the world. But actually when you have a child and you're worrying about all those kind of explosive nappies, or like where will we sit, or will there be a high chair, it can be quite overwhelming just even thinking about doing that. And so having that sight and that sort of almost like another grown-up going, don't worry, I've sussed it, it's going to be fine. Because sometimes you can go to these places, and even like going on the tube for the first time, and how am I going to get the buggy on there, and can I lift it? Oh no, I can't. And then you find out as soon as you're at the top of those big stairs. But so tell us more about your day job.
So in my day job, I work as a sexual health and termination nurse. So completely separate from kind of restaurant review stuff. So I'm supporting women with unplanned pregnancies. And before that, I worked in sexual health sort of more specifically. So things like treating chlamydia and gonorrhea and stuff like that. So sorry if you're listening to this early in the morning and eating your breakfast and I've just said gonorrhea. But
I always want to sing it to the tune of gonorrhea, gonorrhea. Gonorrhea, let me go.
That at work.
Obviously, it's a very serious thing. I am not. But oh my goodness. So, like dealing with big emotions, unexpected news, perhaps. And so, how do you hold those boundaries for yourself? I guess as a sleep deprived, tired mum and busy lady.
I weirdly find nursing in many ways easier than I do, say, running big networking events or dining events that I've been doing sort of at the same time over the last few years. And I think that for many years before I trained as a nurse, so I trained as a nurse quite late. So I went back to uni when I was 28. And before that, I'd worked in homeless services for many years. So from 20 to 28, that's what I had been doing. So supporting people who had been sleeping rough and people who had substance abuse or mental health problems and stuff like that, which is, again, a job I just randomly fell into. But because I'd had all that practice, for me, I go to work and I feel like the easiest thing in the world for me is to be able to be nice to someone who's having a bad day. And I think when I am interacting with patients, no matter what it is the worst day of their year or maybe their life that I am seeing them on. And it's not hard to be nice, and take time and to go, this is significant. And I know that this is hard. And if you need to have a cry, now is a good time to do that if you want to do that. So I don't struggle with that at all. I don't know why that is. I think there are lots of people in the world who would find that job difficult and maybe find food blogging easy in comparison. But I just thought, and I have a weird amnesia as well. I don't tend to take things home with me when I leave the clinic. I come home and I am mum again. So I guess I just maybe have a weird brain.
Yes. No, but I think we're all programmed in different ways to be able to have that ability. And I know when my mum was working, she was a head teacher of an infant school, and this infant school was, very challenging rather, and probably had a lot of the things that we've already mentioned already, and a lot of imprisoned parents and abuse and oh my god, like all of the things. And she had to certainly have those boundaries in place for herself, because otherwise every single day she'd want to go and lie on the floor and in the middle of the hall and not be able to process or do anything. And I think that's so lovely that you're able to do that, because there's that phrase, isn't it? People won't remember necessarily what you said, but like how you made them feel. And gosh, when you're in that vulnerable state, it's exactly what you need. How how did you know that you had this ability to sort of reinvent yourself and be fearless? Because, even going back to uni at 28, I'm sure people around you, whether you listen to them or let them the noise go into your ears, people have their own opinions, or they'll give you a little bit of feedback that maybe you're not ready. How do you have that resilience and that ability to reinvent?
Well, I think I am and always have been just very driven and interested in doing the next thing. So I think I'm quite impulsive in some ways, and I I don't know that I am resilient. I think that going back to uni at 28 nearly broke me completely.
In what
And,
way?
well, I think that I'd spent most of my 20s doing something that I found quite easy to do and that I was quite good at. And then I went back to uni and had to learn academia, and I had to learn how to write an essay again, and I wasn't very good at it. And then you balance, when you're doing a nursing degree, you balance not only quite high end academia, you also then go and work shifts on a ward, and you are the dog's body on a ward for 3 years in between doing that. And it's brutal. Like, I think I don't want to kind of sidetrack into I can't believe that they've taken the bursary away, but it's a job,
Yeah.
It's not like the liberal arts degree. It's very, very much hands-on, full-time, very sort of high level of responsibility, even though you might, there's a lot of people that are training as nurses who are coming straight out of high school and going on to wards and caring for people. So it's like it was incredibly hard. And I developed anxiety whilst I was doing that training, and I now take anxiety medication to manage that. So I don't know that I am necessarily resilient, but I think I'm always interested in moving forward. So
Yes.
I realized I was working in homeless services, and the Tories got back into power, and they started cutting funding. And I was in a situation where my options were becoming more limited, and I was going to have to reapply for my job and compete with colleagues. And I just thought, I want to be in a safer situation employment wise. Nursing is the place to go, which in 2010, that was the case. But
Yeah.
I would say maybe now nursing is not necessarily that safe place because things are not ring fenced to the extent that they were. But, it is about, I've been jumping from one thing to another to try and just keep things ticking over. So it is about reacting to what am I going to do in this moment to make my situation better? And that is
Oh,
always my
yes.
motivation, I think.
Yes, and sometimes that is the next thing that is going to work for the next 5 minutes to stop you
Yeah.
being in that headspace of like, I don't know, of sort of being completely overwhelmed, because there's so much. I mean, we've spoken about this before, of sort of Instagram and the 5-year plan and everybody at this time of year living and dreaming their best life. But gosh, it seems so overwhelming that you have to map everything out on the 1st of January. And it's very much a work in progress. And one thing that I was thinking just as you were saying that is that you're sort of having two extremes of life that, when we're in the Instagram playground, there's a lot of lovely gloss and everything's very shiny and open and brightly coloured, whereas in your day job, my goodness, you're seeing all levels of life, and some of it isn't necessarily glossy, I guess.
No, there is absolutely no gloss in anything that I do in my day job. It is, it is really graphic depictions of when I'm talking to people, I have a patter, I have a script that I work from, because a termination is a termination no matter sort of who it's happening to. So there are certain things that you can expect, and sort of talking through heavy bleeding and blood clots and all of that kind of stuff. There's no gloss there. That's not something glossy at all. And I think that there is actually kind of a beautiful balance about having a job in real life that is emotional and gritty and not glossy, and then being able to go on my days off and create some beautiful food photography and food styling, and like just write about something that in comparison feels completely frivolous. Like, it's not, because at the end of the day, I think when creating events, I'm creating spaces where women can come together and feel comfortable to go out, because the early parenthood is so isolating and stressful. So it feels like a supportive thing, but also it is just a glass of champagne or something nice to eat, or, just something nice. And I think that is maybe it's the symbiosis of the two things together is how it works, actually. And if you took one away, maybe the other one wouldn't be so good.
Yeah, you're right. A couple of weeks ago when Matt got back from tour, my friend did this very kind of stern, like, me and my son are coming over to look after Oscar, and you two are going to go to the pub for 2 hours. Have a nice time. Off you go. And do you know what? It was about 3.5 minutes before we both went, oh, this is so great, isn't it? Oh my goodness, how's your wine? Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, we're having such a lovely time. And it's just quite immediate, actually, how good those things can. I mean, it's not necessarily just about the drinking, but it's that moment of having that piece of you back, or having that connection with somebody. Because my goodness, the days of early parenthood are so long. I just remember looking back on it going, oh my goodness, I've seen about 18 hours of this 24-hour period, and I feel slightly like a lunatic.
Yeah. And I think that especially while I was on leave, that was where the events came from specifically, because I needed to have something to do in my day. I needed to go somewhere. I couldn't stay at home. I would have gone completely mad if I had just stayed in the house. And I found very quickly through apps like Mush and through Instagram a huge community of women who all felt the same.
Yes.
And especially we're in situations where actually, I mean, obviously, it's very nice to go out without the children, but there are lots of times when that's not an option, and you have to find a way to still feel like yourself without maybe having the money to hire a babysitter or have a great friend who's going to come over and mind the kids. And so, a lot of the focus of the events has been around how can we make this work for people, give them an element of luxury or an element of doing something nice for themselves without them having to put their kids in childcare. So I'm thinking about things like, do we have enough space for 40 buggies in this event space? Do we have, thinking of the networking event that I ran with London Mums Network and Entrepreneursary in November, we had childcare at that event, so we used the private dining room space at Sea Containers so that there was a creche. So you could come and have brunch and go to your networking workshops, and then you could still see your little person just over there. So, yeah, it is about finding a balance, isn't it? It's such a cliche term, but it is, that is definitely for me, I think.
Exactly. How did you know that you could how did you kind of convince yourself that you could do this? Because I think sometimes when we could look at the online world, we think that everybody else has set up the events, or, well, what have I got to offer, or can I really do this? And we suddenly can get really in self-doubt because we see what everybody else is doing. If somebody else was thinking about making steps already in quite, I don't know, a busy sector, what should they do first, or what would be really useful to them?
So I think before I did this, I don't have any experience in event management. The only events that I had organized prior to starting this business were my wedding and an office Christmas party. That is literally all I had ever done. And I thought at the time when I was planning the office Christmas party, this is quite fun. I quite like it. But I have no idea how one explicitly breaks into that industry and goes and works for somebody else. The only way I knew how to do it was to think, well, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of my kind of mantra, is just to go and do it. I'm just going to go and do it and see what happens.
Yes.
And so I think you need to think about transferable skills, and everybody has them because everybody's worked in a customer service job. Everybody's done something like that. Nursing is a customer service job. When I'm thinking about running an event, I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable and everybody's having a good time, and I'm watching everybody in my event to make sure everything is going okay, in exactly the same way I would do if I was running a bay. So I would be looking at all of my patients going, is that person comfortable? Does that person need this? What have you? And so it's about thinking about what transferable skills that you have already, and then working to those strengths that you already have. And then I think you don't start out and go, I am launching an events company. You go, I'm just going to do this one thing and see what happens, which is what I always do. I just do one thing and see what happens, and then things sort of just keep going, you know.
And how has that been, sort of doing that with your husband as well, and kind of working together in a different kind of way, especially when you launched? What would really work for you as a couple? Because I think sometimes even the closest people to us, it can be quite daunting saying, I'm thinking about doing this. And the amount of coaching clients that I have, at the end of a session, they'll say, oh, it feels really good to get that off my chest because I haven't told anybody that yet. And I'm like, what? You haven't told a friend? You haven't told your husband? You haven't told your wife? You know, it still feels quite closed.
So because I am impulsive, I kind of just went, honey, there's a gap in the market here and we have to do something right now. We have to do it right. And
put down everything.
Like, my husband was like, you need to calm down. And I was like, no, this is important. And I bullied him basically into getting my website up and running within about 10 days of having had the idea, because I thought, if I miss this opportunity, someone else will do it. Yes. But I obviously have learnt since then that nobody wants to run events that also involve having small children, because it's really hard.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have worried about rushing. But in that moment, it was definitely like, if I do have an idea, I will run it by Gavin straight away, and I will get his support, or at least his begrudging support, because in that moment he was like, I'm busy and I have other work to do and you're not going to pay me for this programming. But I was like, it will work for us long term. Trust me, babe. Trust me.
Exactly. Because, and especially if they know us and know like that's our kind of style. Like, I've had this idea and I need to move on it. Like, that's kind of very much my personality. Mainly Matt will kind of go, okay, cool. Like, he doesn't hear, 170 of the other ideas that didn't make the cut, but he knows pretty much when I'm good to go, I'm good to go, without sounding scary. And I guess, what have you gained from it? What benefits have you gained from it personally, and what's really surprised you and been unexpected about it?
So the most beneficial thing, I wouldn't say that this is necessarily the most lucrative way to make money. I think it is a small additional income stream, which means that I don't have to work quite as much as a nurse, which means that I'm home more to see Max, which was the aim the whole time. But the thing that I've gained out of it more than anything, which I was fully surprised by, was the huge number of friends that I have made, all new mum friends. Because, it's one of those things where when you have kids, the pre-kid friends disappear, and a lot of mine did. And I have this huge community of women that I really adore, that are in my phone every day and also at my events and supporting me and being awesome. And it's friendship more than anything is the big thing that I think I've really gained from doing this. A bunch of new skills as well. It's been, really helpful and will help me going forward. But it's the friendships that are more important than anything.
Yeah. And they are out there to sort of be found. And I think sometimes, especially in that isolation mode, we can get that FOMO of like, everybody else is best friends with everybody and all the friendships have been made. We can kind of sit in that lack, especially if we're tired and, up all night or whatever. But it's all, the community is there and ready. And on the whole, most people that I've met in real life have been so lovely and supportive and game and, collaborate and all of those good things that, great women are, really.
I think that's the thing. It's because this community is led by women. You know, I know it's mummy bloggers, maybe, sort of, is what we're talking about. The Instagram world is dominated by women. And I think that it is a perfect landscape to show what it can be like when women are running things. And it doesn't have to be competitive. And yeah, sometimes I think it is cliquey, it can be. But I think at the same time, I don't know, anybody who ever comes to my events or ever slides into my DMs is welcome, you know, like I'm interested in creating a haven for people who are having a bad time in early parenthood. You know, let's find a way to be nice to each other in exactly the same way that I do in my nursing job, just in a completely different way. But it is about, I don't mind who you are or where you come from or what your situation is. If you want to talk to me about being a mum or running an Instagram business or any of that kind of stuff, I am here and I am happy to hear from you.
And I feel so proud, actually, of the female race that we've come so far, because certainly even watching my mum, there would be that. I mean, my mum was a good baker, and so, you know, would crack out a couple of really good cakes for the bake sale at school. But I know that there was a weird underlying, like, oh, what's she wearing? Or her thing is going to be the best. Or there was still very much that there was only one spot available. And, you know, this is going back sort of 30 years, but I feel like we've come a long way already, and I'm just excited to see where things going forward.
I think it's the beauty of the internet is we've recreated our landscape. So yes. We have, you know, they say if there's not enough chairs at the table, go and get your own table, which is what we've done with Instagram. What women have done is we have our own table now, and everyone can come and sit there.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so and it just never is just one thing. Things always lead in different ways, and, you know, introductions or opening doors, and the amount of times where I'll sort of say to clients at the end of a session, like, who else in my network can I connect with you with, and how can I help move this forward? Because I get a real kick out of it as well, like being able to be that person who holds open the door for another woman.
Absolutely. I think it was a really perfect example is on Instagram there is a lovely woman called the Curious Mummy who messaged me yesterday or the day before and was like, I'm running this course in Balham. Do you know any other local mums who might be able to promote it or are maybe interested in coming? And I was like, yeah, let me hook you up, because what you're doing sounds amazing. And why wouldn't I want to help you? Let's find ways to work together. I think the thing that has helped me grow and not to think of it selfishly like that, but the thing that has been most powerful in my growth in terms of the blog, in terms of events, has literally been collaborating with other women. Every time I have a conversation with somebody new or think about working with somebody new, things happen. You know, if you're just trying to compete with other people, I don't think that things do happen.
Exactly. And when sometimes people try to hold back value, or I have this with my clients sometimes where they're like, well, I don't want to give that away for free. But then I'll sort of say, but if you give that away for free, like, that is so huge and game changing, and that could just turn into a different conversation or spark a different kind of reaction. And, you know, we have to be careful, I guess, with what we offer and make sure that we're valuing our worth and all of that good stuff. But I never kind of work from the mindset of holding back or lack or like, no, this is for me. I'm going to just keep this all secret. I'm like, no, have it. If I can help, I will.
I think it's the difference between when you're working with a big brand that has a budget and you're working with somebody who is in the same financial position as you. So I think I would never expect a fee from somebody who didn't have an advertising budget, who didn't have, we're working together as equals, or you're a brand that's paying me. And there isn't really a lot of in between in terms of that. So it is, yeah, definitely.
Exactly. How do you what things help you to be really topped up as a person? As in, because you're giving a lot as well, what stuff makes you feel really good and ready for the day and ready for all the different hats that you have to wear?
So I have a really strict routine. So that's sort of the first thing. So I have to kind of do things in a particular order in the morning in order to get ready, because I take a bunch of medication, so I have to eat before I take the medication. So there is a schedule that happens in the morning, and then I'm ready. But I think the thing that kind of buoys me is getting to go out and have something nice to eat, or eating something nice at home. That is like my favorite thing to do. So, and that's, I think presumably why the blog is successful, because you can tell that this is something that I love.
Yes.
And I want to share that love with other people. So it is about, my favorite thing is to go out to a restaurant and be toasting my husband with a glass of wine. In that moment, just feeling like everything is good,
Yeah.
and getting to each time we get to do that. And, as I've written this blog, it's gotten to happen more frequently, which is lovely. But the space between that is the motivation to kind of, how can we get to go out to dinner again? How can I earn enough money or do well enough with the blog to kind of get a PR company to comp me a meal or whatever? Is kind of, that's what keeps me going, is the opportunity to kind of relax and celebrate with my husband, or with my mum, because she's actually much more frequent a dining companion with me and Max than my husband is, because he's at work.
And I always feel like I've got so much to say with my mum. Like when we had a lunch date before Christmas, and we basically just spent the whole, no, you go for, oh, sorry. Okay. Well, no. Well, let's go back to this. And sometimes there's just such a wealth of conversation that needs to be had.
I think my mum was a nurse as well, and we are both like high level planners. Let's do it now. What are we going to do next? So we spend a lot of time like plotting to take over the world during our lunches, definitely. In between sort of talking about Max's development, which we spend a lot of time on. But he is always with us at lunch. If I go to lunch with my mum, Max is always there. So it is about, we're juggling childcare as well as, and raising him together, because my mum is here as our childcare sort of. I work 3 days a week, so yeah. So she's pretty great.
And do you know what, that sense of kids being part of the eating and part of life is so important. I'm from a huge family, and very much as kids it was taught like, no, right, if there could be 12 people around the table, and there was that thing of like, right, you're laying the table, you're going to be the person who clears the dishes, you're the person who goes and gets the spoons for the dessert or whatever. But it was very much like part of the process. It was never kind of like, oh, dinner's ready, and then you just kind of slump at the table, eat and leave. That was just never a kind of expectation. And I think that is just such a powerful thing that I'm passing on to my son. So like when we have people over for dinner, he goes and takes all the things, which is slightly precarious. Sometimes I'm like, should I really be letting my 3-year-old carry this? But he's so careful, and he's so kind of proud of himself, the fact that he's doing this. And it's really lovely to see. And I would never want him just to have that expectation that like he can just slope up, eat and run.
Yeah, I think that there is definitely, with any meal, there is the ritual of the meal, and then there is the connection that you have within that moment with the people that you're dining with. And I think that that's really important to instill in kids, because I think that it gives them responsibility over their role and the role that they will grow to have in their adult relationships. I think it's vital to kind of have that be inclusive and have everybody have their little jobs to do to create this moment that we all have together.
Definitely. And I was certainly looking for that in my 20s. Like, I was really excited for that moment where I would have my own little family and I'd be able to do things in a certain way. And like that, we just spent Christmas, the three of us, on Christmas Day this year, and it was so nice. And even watching Matt's face of like, I'm gonna cook the roast potatoes how I want to, like I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna use this, and they got a bit of a joy back as well. This sense of being able to reinvent it and make it your own is really lovely.
Yeah, I am absolutely spellbound by Christmas now in a way that I definitely was not in my 20s. I hated Christmas in my 20s, and I think now that we are the center of things, and I get to sort of treat my mum and get all of the nice things in for her, and then everyone sits down together, and And we are running things the way that seems to be working best for us all as a family unit. And I think I love Christmas now because of that. And it is like, it's the pinnacle meal of the year, isn't it? So if we're talking about the connection that you have and the rituals that go around it, it's definitely like, this is the best meal of the year from that perspective, for sure.
Totally. And we definitely lined ourselves up for that moment, but then I think we tried to eat about 2:30, and then Oscar, who had dropped his sleep about a year ago, was like, I think I need to go to bed. I was like, what? don't mess up the Christmas photo. We're living our perfect life. What are you doing? But yeah, he completely lost the plot. He peaked way too soon. But again, that was just a bit of an eye-rolling moment of like, okay, we're not there yet. Like this is life. This is what we're doing.
Yes, definitely.
I've got one final question, which is, where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
I would like to be living in Glasgow. That's the big item on our agenda for this year, as we're in the process of organising to sell the house.
Why Glasgow?
My husband is from Glasgow.
Okay, that makes sense.
And my mum is sort of obsessed with Scotland, so she would really like to live in Scotland, and I would like to make her happy. And I think that we would be much better off financially there, just because house prices are considerably cheaper than they are in London.
Yeah.
So we're looking into sort of organising that for this summer, hopefully.
Wow.
So in Glasgow, but still running the blog. Probably not running the blog full time. I'd still like to be sort of keeping my hand in, but I'd like to only do nursing 1 day a week. That's what I've decided.
Lovely.
If I can get to that point where I have enough income where I only have to do nursing 1 day a week, then that would be ideal.
Definitely. And one thing I was going to say is, if people are listening and are in a similar situation where this year is the moment where they kind of they change the levels of what they're doing, do those maths now and do that sort of figuring it out and really figure out what that looks like. Because I had a client the other day actually, and she didn't realise that I don't want to say the figures because I don't want to break confidentiality, but I think her turnover had increased by something like 25%, and she hadn't even realised. And it was because she'd kind of just been plodding along and being in her business. So I was sort of really encouraging her, like, do the maths, celebrate, you're doing it, it's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm hoping. I think that 2019 is going to be a good year. 5 years from now, definitely, I'm hoping to be in Scotland, maybe have had another little person, hopefully running the blog 4 days a week and running events both in Scotland and in London. So the aim is to kind of be probably doing events in London quarterly. So I'll come down and I'll still do reviews down here as well. And so I've got my hand in, because I think that's the thing for me, is I don't want to shut any doors. I want to have options within everything that I'm doing. So it is about, having everything available so that I can just sort of dip in and out of everything and not ever feel stuck in one thing.
Oh, a woman after my own heart. I love that. Yeah. Oh, well, and it's exciting times. And I think certainly at this time of year, just being really optimistic about what is possible, because everything can change so quickly in a really great way. And this is the landscape that we're living in. And if people want to come and find out more about you and follow along the blog or come to an event, where should they go?
So they should go to the website, so mamaneedsamimosa.com, and everything is there, and on top of links to social and stuff like that. But if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram. About 8 hours a day I'm on Instagram. So
yes.
My DMs are always open.
Excellent. And that sense of like when people say, do you want to check your screen time every day? No, I don't. No. I'd rather not know.
No,
it's like a weird, bad secret addiction that I need to keep to myself and not be judged by my iPhone. So, But thank you so much, Emily. Oh, it's just been so great chatting. And I would quite like a mimosa now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.